Hi! So, I haven't made a video in like over a year, but today we're gonna rectify that because I want to be helpful and tell you guys about some of my mental health experiences. If the camera bounces, it's because I'm nervous and I'm shaking my leg. But today I want to talk about what it is really like to be hospitalized in a psychiatric facility. I've been hospitalized 3 times now. Twice in a mental health specific hospital, so not like a regular hospital that has a psych ward, but like a full mental hospital, and then once in a hospital's psych ward. The first time I was hospitalized, I was 16. The second time I was 17, and the third time I was 18, and that was under a month ago. I just got out of the hospital for the third time this month, this March, and I am going to talk about all of those experiences, and I'm going to talk about like myths about being hospitalized and kind of dispel rumors and basically give you the information that I wish I had the first time that I was hospitalized. So, I'm going to start with the rumors and like the myths, really. The first myth I feel like I hear, and also, before I get into this, being hospitalized in a psychiatric facility is nothing like you see in television, like TV and movies. Like not at all. There's a couple movies, like Short Term 12 is a really good movie that depict mental illness the way that it is, but not that many movies do that, especially horror movies. But the first myth is that you'll be unsafe. That's not true. You'll be safe. That's why you're going there. It's a place of stabilization. It's a place where you can be monitored to make sure that you're safe. And so that includes, like, when you go in, you can't have anything. A lot of hospitals call them sharps. You're not allowed to have sharps. So those are anything you could potentially hurt yourself with. So for example, mirrors, because you can break them and use the glass. Shoelaces, like hoodies that have strings, draw pants that have strings, erasers because you can burn yourself, anything like that. You're also not allowed to have anything that contains alcohol, and a lot of your like shampoos and cosmetics probably do, so oftentimes they supply that for you. There will potentially be people you're hospitalized with that have had homicidal tendencies in the past, but you're not going to be around them ever by yourself. Like, you'll always be being monitored by somebody. And even in your room, like, there's things called hall checks, and every 15 minutes typically someone comes in and looks in on you and makes sure everything is running smoothly. And also the people that have had tendencies like that usually get their own room. They're not usually put with another person, and people aren't even brought to psych wards or mental hospitals until they're deemed safe enough to be around other people. Like the last time I went, when I was in the ER waiting to be taken up to the psych ward, there was a woman in another room who was screaming that was obviously a danger to other people, and I never saw her. She never came to the psych ward because she was being kept in a place away from others. Although the first time I was hospitalized, there was a kid that wanted to carve his initials into my chest, but I told staff about it, and it was handled. And as long as you're open and you tell staff about things that are upsetting you or people that are scaring you, everything will always be taken care of. Also, in psych wards, in mental hospitals, people don't just act like drugged out zombies or violent, typically. Yeah, there are some people that kind of maybe act the stereotype a little bit, but generally, you never really see that. And the people that do sort of act that way, there's a reason for it, and you'll get to know that reason potentially along your stay, and hopefully have like sympathy and empathy for that person and what they're going through, and respect that just like you, they're in a place where they need stabilization and treatment. The next myth is a big one that I was worried about, and that's medication. In the movies you see, like staff force you to take medication, and if you don't take it, they'll force it down your throat, and that's not how it works. You have rights as a human being and as a patient, and if you don't want to take your medication, that's your choice, at least in my experience. I've refused meds in care before, and when you're put on new meds, you're given all the information, like you're given info sheets. You get to, it's a dialogue with your psychiatrist about what you're going to be taking, and you can choose whether or not you think and you agree that that medication is right for you. It is written down if you don't take your meds. Like there were days I had like vitamins and I didn't want to take them one day, or allergy pills I didn't want to take one day, and they wrote it down. I don't know what the policy is on psych meds because I've never refused psych meds, but other meds, they just write it down. And I have refused to take new medication that they wanted to put me on because I didn't personally think it was the right fit for me. And you're allowed to do that because it's your care, and no one's going to force anything on you that you don't want, unless it has to do with someone else's safety. Next, that you're another myth is that you're just locked in there without fresh air or without contact with the rest of the world. They bring you outside. They want you to get fresh air. They want you to get sunshine. Even in the winter, when I was there, we went out, we went on walks. Even people who aren't able to walk, I got taken in a wheelchair because of my chronic illness. It's not always easy for me to be standing up and walking. So they took me in a wheelchair, and that was really considerate. And they wheelchair raced me with another patient, and that was fun, and we won. No one asked. But yeah. You will be outside, you will have outside time. And it's fun. And then when it's warm, you play games, you get fitness time in. But that's another thing you're not pushed to do. If you don't feel like participating, you can choose to stay inside, and you can choose to exclude yourself from the physical stuff. But I would really recommend taking any opportunity you can to be brought outside. Another thing, the contact with the outside world. Yes, you can't just run to the store, you're not allowed to leave, the premises, but in some psych wards, if you're given the go-ahead, you're allowed to be brought around the rest of the hospital with an escort, a family member, and then brought back, usually in 30-minute increments. You will have visiting hours every single day, a lot of times very long visiting hours, especially on weekends. You will have phone calls. They have phones available for your use, and sometimes the phone is available all day and sometimes only during specific times, but you have the phone and you're able to contact people. You can also send mail. Which I guess is kind of outdated, but I thought it was fun to send cute little letters to my friends and let them know how I was doing. So that is also an option. Another thing with the phone calls. The one psych ward I was on, patients only answered the phone. So they're very protective of your confidentiality. And you have a list of people that you want to be able to get calls from and a list of people that you don't want calling you. So if one of those people calls, you won't have to talk to that person. And the other patients and the staff will know to screen those calls for you. Another myth, which isn't always a myth, is that you cannot have electronics. Most psych wards and most mental hospitals, that's true. Because of the camera on most devices. But if you have something like an old iPod or a device where the camera can be disabled, you're usually allowed to have that. But you're responsible for it. So if someone steals it, there's not a lot that they can do outside of just regular investigating. And I would recommend not bringing anything electronic, plus it's better to not have distractions. There isn't Wi-Fi or anything that'll also be disabled, but for music, and I downloaded Netflix once onto my old iPod and watched that, and that was really nice, but the other places I've been to didn't allow it. Oh, and the last myth, and probably the most important one, I don't know why I said oh like that, is that you're gonna go home cured. And that's not true. The mental hospital is a place for stabilization and treatment and planning for what you can do once you're out of the facility to keep yourself stable. Um, Most places at the end of your stay, you make a relapse plan, a relapse prevention plan. So you're all set for if you start feeling unsafe again. You have something to turn to. And that's very proactive and helpful. So now I'm going to talk a little bit. The rest of this video is going to be kind of a mess because it's not really scripted. But I'm going to talk a little bit about what intake is like, and that is the process of actually being brought to like your room and like getting admitted. Basically admission. So it depends on whether or not you're going through the ER. My first 2 times at a mental hospital, I was not going through the ER. I was just, I called ahead of time. They saw if there was a bed available. There was. I came a few hours later. So for me, it was basically, you give them your luggage. They go through it. They take what they need to take. You answer a lot of questions, like why you're there, your history, your medication, etc. You bring your medication that you're on so that they can, they have their own pharmacy and they can supply you with that. A lot of questions, things like that. You do need to, at some point, strip down. They're really good about it, like you're covered, but someone probably of your gender will have to check your body to make sure there's nothing open, like any open wounds, anything dangerous hidden on your person, anything like that. And then they write down any like marks you have on your body so that later on they can make sure that there's nothing new, like you haven't been harming yourself while you're in the hospital. They also weigh you, check in with your weight, everything like that. Like all the basic stuff, like your vitals, your height, everything you would have at a normal doctor's appointment, essentially, like a normal checkup. And then you're typically brought to your room, you're given your things back, everything that you're allowed to have. Some places really limit everything, like the psych ward I was in, you could only have 3 outfits, and then you would wash them, because they don't want you to have too much stuff. But other places you just bring, really, like, as much as you want. Like, don't overdo it, but, like, if you want books, you want games, you want stuff like that. Although, I would say not to bring things to do, but nothing that's going to be super distracting, because the reason you're there is what you need to be focusing on. You need to be focused on treatment and not distracting until you are allowed to, like, leave. So that's generally what intake is like. Being there, you typically have group therapy, one-on-one therapy. You meet with your whole care team, so like a psychiatrist, a social worker, your therapist, everyone who is going to be helping you in your process while you're admitted. Typically you meet with a care team once a day or a couple times a week, and they check in with you. It depends on like the length of stay at the facility. Shorter stays, you usually meet with the care team every day. Longer stays, you meet less. But you, in a longer stay facility, you'll also probably meet with your therapist once or twice a week. A lot of the people you're around are amazing. I will say that. At least in my experience, I've always come out with like incredible connections and incredible new friends and people whose stories have just been amazing and inspiring. It will be hard, and it will be taxing, and it will be very vulnerable and a lot, but you're there for a reason. And it doesn't matter, but like, I'm proud of you. Like, if you need to go and you're watching this because you need to go, I'm proud that you took the step. And you're going because you know you need help, and you're taking your care into your own hands, and that is probably the most important thing you could possibly do. It takes a lot of strength to be able to ask for help. So good job. But anyway, once you're feeling more safe, more stabilized, your meds are working, you know more of what you want your time outside of the hospital to look like in a positive way, that's when you get discharged. Um, Discharge is usually a really quick process. You get your discharge paperwork and you're allowed to leave. Yeah, that's pretty much what a hospital stay is like. I'm gonna go into some weird specific stuff now, like random things I can think of that might be helpful to know. You will be looked in on around every 15 minutes. I'm trying to think, like, what else I guess would be good to know. Leave questions if you want to on this video, and I can do a follow-up Q&A about everything else that people are curious about, because I feel like this was a pretty good general overview of what to expect, especially, you know, in terms of intake. But I don't know, if there's anything else you guys want to know, please let me know so I can answer any questions you have. And I hope that if you're going, that it's a really rewarding and helpful experience. Or if you're just curious, hello! I've been hospitalized, like, this isn't new information to any of my friends. But, I hope you enjoyed this video, and please leave suggestions if there are other things you want me to talk about, and I will hit you guys up. Ew. I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.